It's time for another episode of Off the Record, On the Rocks. Join Michael Toner and Ankarina Lara and break down the latest news on all things crypto, Metaverse, and Web3, filtering out noise and connecting dots as we pour ourselves into the future.
All right, everybody, welcome back to another Off the Record, On the Rocks with my good friend, Mr. Ankarina Lara. How are you doing, sir? Happy Friday.
I'm doing fantastic this morning. Happy Friday to you. Well, got to the gym this morning early, got the blood pumping. Feeling like it's a great day to record a little podcast.
We've got a lot to get to. We're going to start at the top of the show. News coming out of Consensus. We'll talk about Coinbase making headlines, stealing the narrative coming out of that event. What is Brian Armstrong thinking? There's been some movement here on Capitol Hill. I spent a couple of days inside of the nation's capital this week, just paying attention to these different regulators. We got the CFTC swinging around some billion weight fines. What's your take on just the past week as we head into the next weekend here?
Yeah, as we talk about this consensus, this conference, I mean, you think are a little closer to it, so it'd be great to hear your impressions of, why does this conference even exist and who gets chosen to speak at it. But the thing that the underlying theme to me here is there's been this war of words and posturing that we've seen now over many weeks between the SEC and, generally speaking, Gary Gensler being the head and him doing most of the talking against Brian Armstrong, who's the CEO of Coinbase, and then the various Coinbase executives, which is odd because they're supposed to all be pals since they worked together to have an initial public offering and ring the bell and become the darling listed crypto stock Coin. So it turns out that the government, Mr. Bond, is actually my friend. And they just come around and say, yeah, we'll list you and we'll make you an absolute billionaire, but we're going to come around like every couple of months and make your life a living hell as we just keep extorting money out of you like some mafia game. So I thought it was really interesting that Armstrong, and I think it was either the lawyer or it's either chief legal or chief financial, are up there making a big, like not a diatribe because it wasn't like that, but it's like their manifesto. They're coming up on stage at a conference and basically saying something that isn't really to anyone at the conference, but just directly to Gary Gensler, as if to say, hey, you were on Capitol Hill earlier, lying about how you never owned Bitcoin, never answering anybody's questions. So now here we are at Consensus, not quite Capitol Hill, but we're going to say all these things and kind of fight back with our words. I just don't know if it's going to be effective or who's the theater for. I'm not sure.
Zooming out just a little bit, and you just referenced these guys who are all down in Austin at this conference. This is CoinDesk's most influential gathering of cryptocurrency, blockchain, Web3 thought leaders, partners, clients, friends. Everyone's down in Austin for this event. But zoom out to last week, and you had Gensler taking the seat on Capitol Hill to give his oath under his testimony under oath. You had Brian Armstrong making headlines, Polygon, Ryan Wyatt there here in DC last week. So it's almost like a roadshow moving this narrative around the country in the past 10 days, and we're right on it. Gensler last week, we pieced it apart. We're like, wait a second. And then you imagine you've got these the more, I'd say, Web3 friendly cryptocurrency blockchain folks all then saying, all right, well, we'll go to Austin and we'll regroup, including Brian Armstrong, from the stage saying, he said that the SEC's crypto warning, the sort of hints that the SEC is putting out there, the fines, the we're going to regulate this, Coinbase CEO saying it's not good for America. And to your point, it's like, okay, you guys have been playing with the regulators. Clearly, you've been working with them. Are we just at an impasse? Is that it? Is this the great divide, the big impasse that causes the true departing of the financial systems into a decentralized ecosystem under likely Bitcoin? Or does the U.S. financial market, take that back to global financial market, wake up and figure out how to operate in this new environment? So yeah, that's a lot to go from last week, roll right into Austin. And don't forget our boy Ted Cruz
Oh,
Also, right there
you
in the
gotta
big state
love
of
Teddy
Texas,
Cruz.
making noise.
Well, I mean, Teddy Cruz is just great because you just listen to his voice, and and he's just gonna tell you that story about that time he had that hot wallet, he moved the Bitcoin into it, and it's almost like in the wake of Gary Gensler, just with a straight face saying that he's never bought Bitcoin. That just gave Teddy Cruz the moxie to get up on stage and just start going nuts about, I'll tell you what, I buy Bitcoin every Monday. I bought the dip and I love buying the dip. And CBDC, what's that acronym again? Okay, well, I don't like that because I like Bitcoin. Like he's just looking at his talking notes and like, when did
Yeah.
Teddy Cruz ever come out talking about CBDCs? He's talking about how he buys Bitcoin literally every week and has for years. He wants to get another Bitcoin before the institutional guys come in. I mean, this guy is just spilling
The
his Bitcoin
headlines
maxiness all
quote,
over the table.
here's
All over
why
the
Senator
table.
Ted Cruz likes and owns Bitcoin. And then the big headline from Decrypt: CBDCs are designed to, quote, destroy all the value of Bitcoin. So here's Senator Cruz not only taking that stance on why he loves and owns Bitcoin, but also saying that the intention to use a CBDC, that seems also mildly directed at the regulators, likely
Mm-hmm.
where they were trying to take things, the SEC trying to force the hand into that digital currency. You got all the agencies gearing up for FedNow to bring it to life pretty quickly. And here's Ted Cruz saying that thing that they're trying to do is designed to destroy all value of Bitcoin, to destroy anonymity and to destroy decentralization. To, excuse me, Mr. Cruz, your Bitcoin maxi is showing. Um,
I mean, I wish I could say that he was wrong. I mean, he's not wrong, and
no,
he DeSantis just said there will be no CBDCs in Florida, and then didn't say anything more. Ted Cruz is going even further by just trying to explain why it is. And look, if you have Gary Gensler, who's the head of the Security and Exchange Commission, we know he's affiliated because he's a professor at MIT in their media labs. We know that MIT Media Labs is where Project Franklin, which is the original eCash or e-dollar project test that was supposed to get done in 16 weeks before tax day, was all hatched. And we know their ties to Sam Bankman-Fried, Caroline Ellison, and FTX, and Alameda Research, and all the crazy kind of swirl of people. Well, it turns out that major Republican senators and governors don't like all that. And they don't want a CBDC, which is going to be this acronym that's going to be literally hammered until we don't want to say it anymore as we go towards the election cycle. But they're going to basically position it. I think GOP leadership is going to position it by saying this is a liberal Democrat surveillance state product. It's
interesting.
a mediocre solution to the problem. They're watching your every move. Whatever you do, don't use the CBDC because the government's going to know, big brother, you don't want to take, they're going to take your guns. Like, literally, that's where it's going to head. And you know what? Maybe you do need the country just to get political and rip apart CBDCs because I think that it's kind of a crazy notion that like literally every on-ramp's going to get choked. So the only way you can get crypto in the US is via the CBDC. That is going to stifle innovation, American
Yeah.
innovation like crazy. And maybe that's why Coinbase is threatening things like, oh, hey, maybe we'll just leave and go offshore. Like everyone starts threatening leaving the US. That's not what
Yep.
we want in this space at all. So I find the rhetoric to be dangerous, but highly political. And honestly, as someone who loves Bitcoin, I couldn't, he couldn't be more right. I think CBDCs are going to be kind of terrible.
Look, it's it's crazy. We try to make sense of all this. I think we talked about last week this regulatory framework getting set up in the UK. It's clearly been driven into the narrative here in the US. Like I think maybe under the or gets bookended by the average listener by the bank failure or sort of coming out of the bank failure, which the irony of that of those who have been in and have studied Bitcoin know that that's where it was born out of. It isn't, read the white paper. It's not that long. Talks about specifically avoiding the problem with the centralized banks. And here come the banks trying to figure out a way to provide a central bank digital currency. To now hear Ted Cruz. We don't have to go too far down the rabbit hole, but Elizabeth Warren, saying and Roger Marshall saying they want to make your crypto wallet illegal, and it's like
I mean, she's
I
just
just
marching. She's on a march. Like there's a drum. I liken it to like Lord of the Rings, when and like Elizabeth Warren is like one of those Uruk-hai orcs. They're just beating this drum, and she's just slowly marching towards Helm's Deep, and it's just going to start to unload all of the armies of the government. And it's like you pick your flag, right? How many flags is this woman carrying? First, your wallet. No, no. First, if you use a VPN, well, then you're a terrorist. Second, if you have a wallet of any kind, it's illegal and you're going to go to jail. So let's use all of our government resources jailing American citizens who have either VPNs or a hot wallet, or sorry, a cold storage wallet. Like, is she trying to 10x her book signing fees and like her speaking fees? It feels like there's this need. Elizabeth Warren has a need right now to get into the press and say everything bad about technology that she can. To what end? I don't know. Where's the money coming from that's making her say that? Greenpeace? I don't know.
yeah.
Someone is paying her to say a lot of bad stuff, and I don't understand who.
Well, I guess the point I was making there, and coming from DC down to Austin, we've got Ted Cruz standing on one side of this, we've got Elizabeth Warren standing on the other side of this. I think, this is Bitcoin is on the ballot. And I think understanding how our elected officials feel about cryptocurrency, and this is also where I think Brian Armstrong is really proving himself to the American public right now. We talked about and covered when they first launched it, maybe 6-8 weeks ago. It's been a little while, but the Crypto 435
Mm.
project to if you care about clear crypto regulation, they're encouraging, and it looks like they've got 40,000 people across all 435 congressional districts to just make your voice heard on crypto policy. Where do you stand on it? I think that really puts it on the ballot. If now you've got the biggest exchange, at least here in the US, educating a market. And let's hope that that's the approach they take. And maybe it's why Brian Armstrong is walking such a tightrope. At the top, you and I describing like sort of where we thought you were playing nice with them. Now here you are taking the stage at consensus, but maybe it's convenient audience. I think the next, election cycle, and where does Coinbase really leverage that grassroots effort? I think a grassroots effort is really designed to tell you, how does the American public feel about cryptocurrency? And now the narrative being driven into the other side of, is it a surveillance state? Are all your transactions tracked and the government knows? And what are the implications here for FedNow? I mean, take it there. I want to get to another quick topic. We got a lot to get through, but that's a lot on the policy side, bringing in politics. But let's not forget about the regulators. You've got the CFTC cracking its largest fraud case involving Bitcoin, with the offender being ordered to pay 3.4 billion in a fine
With
from
a
the Texas
B,
judge, from a Texas
billion.
judge with a B. So, the timing of this case, very interesting, right here in the heart of consensus, saying that, you can still be ordered to pay a penalty payment in a Bitcoin related fraud case. It's also the CFTC saying, look, we got this. We'll regulate it. We'll
We
show you.
got
We'll
this.
crack down.
I mean, the CFTC in this story, we haven't heard much from the CFTC, right? We know they exist, right? And they've been quiet. They've really only popped their head up a couple times in the last few months. It really has been the SEC, the Security and Exchange Commission's show. They have been the ones shaking down the celebrities. They've been the ones talking about FTX. They've been the ones levying literally fines to anybody who they could bully enough to pay. But they specifically, the SEC always says, we think all cryptocurrencies are securities except for Bitcoin, leaving that except for door open. And the CFTC is swooping in, and it's not like $400,000 from Soulja Boy, or 1.3 from Kim Kardashian, or 30 million from Kraken or whatever. This is $3.4 billion, and this is a foreign national. And they cite this foreign national having done transactions with 20,000 plus American citizens' wallets or whatever, plus many others around the world, or however they couch it. But they're going to come after that Bitcoin. They're going to confiscate it like they did with Silk Road. The government's going to be, the CFTC is going to actually be able to use that value in terms of like a budget. If I don't know how much of the seized funds they get to actually use, but let's just say it's a lot of it. That's a lot of money to power your division. if you're in the business of hiring more regulators, right? And it kind of squarely says, well, if everything else, Ether and everything else is a security, well, then Bitcoin's a commodity because we're the
Right.
CFTC. And
Yeah.
it also, to me, positions them in this way that's like, I kind of don't mind them because they seem to be going after international criminals, whereas the SEC is literally going after Americans. We wake up in the morning on Monday, send a nasty gram to Kim Kardashian. Wake
Chasing
up on
Shaq
Tuesday,
down as he's driving to
just
the gym.
chasing Shaq. He's just trying to get to the gym, and they've been trying to throw papers at him. He's a hard guy to miss, but somehow they miss him for 3 months. And it's like, really, you're tearing down like all of my favorite American cultural icons just because you woke up and got mad and had to go do that? Like, what is going on here? So to me, it feels like there's a lot more work the CFTC can really be doing and a lot of more power they can flex. And I feel like that commodity tag is going to be something we're going to start to hear. Watch Ted Cruz in his next speech talk about how Ether is a security and Bitcoin
Right.
is a commodity. You're
And
going to hear it come out of his mouth.
but this goes counter to the Texas state rules that were originally designed to attract folks, and then sort of the retracting of those, unless the retracting of those several weeks ago was just to clean the slate, to kind of do it again. Like maybe something wasn't structured properly. Maybe I don't know. Maybe it was just on energy, but not on the actual mining of Bitcoin to go back into the coffers of the government. I don't know. I don't know, but I do feel like that goes counter to what that news from a couple weeks ago of Texas pulling the rug on that crypto-friendly state then runs counter to this Texas judge saying, no, it's a commodity. The CFTC, is going to regulate this commodity. I don't know, unless then that maybe allows the CFTC to come in and now they're going to write the rules, like the way they maybe do. It's worth doing the research. Like who writes the rules for a new, like an oil company, which is is regulated as a
Commodity.
futures, as a commodity. So who comes in and gives the licenses for those? It's probably the CFTC. And in order for the CFTC to write that regulation, maybe they needed to throw the old rule out to pave way for the CFTC to say, actually, we're going to write the rules for how to get your new, Bitcoin mining license.
Your
And if
new
you
bit
don't, we'll
license.
fine you 4.9 billion.
But piggybacking on that too, maybe there is a narrative where, like, I actually believe they didn't really know what they were giving, and I think maybe guys like Teddy and others probably were in their mind. Everyone thinks, oh, mining means Bitcoin, and so they give all these breaks and benefits, and these companies show up, and then maybe someone sniffs around and realizes, wait, these guys aren't even mining Bitcoin. I mean, they are a little bit. They're mining all these other random things. Like maybe they realize that a crypto company is a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And someone's like, well, wait a second. We like Bitcoin, right? Not this other stuff. All right, throw them all out. Take away everything. Bring in the CFTC. Let's get a proper commodities regulation, and then
Wait, Gensler
prove
called?
that you're only.
He said we like
prove you're only
Bitcoin?
we're only mining Bitcoin here. You got to prove that now, right? I mean, that was even the funny thing that was said in that article coming out of the World Economic Forum. You see that article talking about, like, they literally talk about mining and how the environment is not, that mining for cryptocurrency isn't actually bad for the environment. They're finally admitting that at the World Economic Forum level. And they have these pictures in the article that are full on ant mining rigs and like Bitcoin mining, but they literally never say the word Bitcoin. They refuse to even utter the word. We're going to find it, I think, very polarizing. You're either going to find people who are going to say Bitcoin every other word, like Ted Cruz, or you're going to find someone who just refuses to say it ever, like Gary Gensler.
Yeah.
He
So
literally he refused under oath that he even has ever bought one.
right, which I don't believe. I mean, I love that we're pulling this from the political landscape into the regulation, and this regulation through enforcement. The other thing that we don't want to leave out here are the brands also coming in. I think this is kind of how we tackle this problem of, is the market being set up? Is the regulatory market, is the technology ready? Are the regulators ready? And are the brands ready? And if you get those three things to line up, you can create a new economy. You can create a whole new marketplace. And the brands, we've seen some of them step in. We talk a lot about Starbucks and the loyalty programs. I did hear somebody tell me that there is the interoperable loyalty chain in the works, and it just makes me wonder, is it built on Polygon? Polygon
Hmm.
stealing headlines this week with giant partnership announcements. These guys famously, the first to blockchain to sign with Meta months ago, maybe even a year ago at this point. But the one that stood out to me this week was Franklin Templeton money market fund launches launches on the Polygon blockchain. This was coming from businesswire.com, a Berkshire Hathaway company.
Hmm.
I love seeing that this coming across the wire specifically, but basically a registered mutual fund to use a public blockchain to process transactions and record share ownership. Who owns it? Now supported on the Polygon blockchain. So that's one for Polygon. And then the other one was Google Cloud, coming out Google Cloud to support Polygon to help grow ecosystem. So here are the brands now saying they're all like partnering up. They're all, trying to take somebody to the dance with them. The dance is getting started here. It's happening on Capitol Hill. It's happening at Consensus. It's happening with the brands and the technology. Everybody figuring out how are we gonna bring this new crypto framework, this new blockchain based framework into our business. And Franklin Templeton, Google, Meta, everybody choosing Polygon.
Yeah, I mean, and let's give a nice high five to whoever Polygon's marketing and PR, efforts are, because this is a coordinated keep Polygon Labs name in people's minds coming out of Consensus. These articles just dropping. There's like a steady beat, right? Every couple days, Polygon's getting mentioned, and when you see the blockchains being talked about in terms of like what are going to be the ones that are integrated. Well, there's the Ethereum blockchain, which is sort of very famous, right? It's sort of the birth of all these secondary cryptocurrencies. The Bitcoin blockchain, the Lightning Network, that gets talked about. You got the Solana network, which I think kind of rose to fame during pandemic because of a lot of NFT projects that seem like a lot were on Solana. And then you have Polygon, who kind of comes in, and their little special sauce is the interoperability and almost like the connector blockchain that we Google want to be on this more open blockchain because we Google want to interface with everyone. We don't want to go narrow into Bitcoin or narrow into Ethereum or narrow into Solana. We want to have this blockchain, which is sort of purpose built as a project to link other blockchains. Like you refer to it as the interoperability.
Yeah.
And that's something that really, there was a lot of people talking about this for the last couple of years. Polygon with their coin ticker sign, which is called Matic, Matic. Why those two are so different, I don't know. But look, they're making some waves. I mean, honestly, to get Google behind them shows that Google is about partnering, not building.
Well,
Like these big companies are going to partner, not build. Who's Microsoft going to choose? Who's
also,
Apple going to choose?
I mentioned his name earlier, but it's Ryan Wyatt. He's the president of Polygon Labs. This guy was the global head of gaming at, you'll love this, YouTube, for 7 years up until February 2022. I followed this guy for a long time on Instagram, on Twitter. He was like streaming, sort of doing a lot of that early gaming Twitch type content creation. But here he is, former global head of gaming, now at Polygon. YouTube leads you back to Google. This
Oh
guy's
yeah,
got
no,
a
I mean that's
great,
it's inside job.
yeah, he's got a great Rolodex, and something that we often talk about here in terms of mass market adoption of blockchain technology, that gaming is really stealing the adoption onboarding mechanism. It is the thing, whether you believe it is a game or not. It could be a a gamified loyalty program that onboards you in. But here he's got this experience coming from the world of gaming, at least from YouTube's perspective, to bring live streaming, blockchain digital receipts, and brands to the table. Like,
Yeah,
that's real
no
time
offense
commerce.
to it is. I mean, I have a long and storied history interfacing with people from Google and YouTube over the years, or I should say Alphabet. And there's a pretty strong pattern of, leaving the company after X number of years, 5+, starting new business X, and then selling new business X back to Google. You have friends, they're all your pals, and it's an ecosystem that takes care of itself. But to be, honest, as someone who's also been in gaming, like we talk about YouTube gaming. Like what
It was
exactly
streaming. It was
is
streaming
that?
of games. That's what they
It
were doing
was, it
mostly.
was,
Yeah.
it was, and it was there was a moment in time where that seemed like it was going to work, and then it didn't work. And I don't know. I'm sure he had other successes, but him landing in this spot, launching an entire new blockchain, that he has a pretty good, I think, opportunity to do more partnerships. Like wouldn't be surprised if Microsoft ends up popping up doing something on Polygon. It has that Silicon Valley pedigree that's trusted. Part of it too is the trust. What American companies are going to go with a blockchain company that isn't American?
Yeah.
And is it going to be something that's built out of California? Is it going to be something built out of Texas, out of Florida? Probably California. Like it's kind of an insular, kind of incestuous thing, but Silicon Valley kind of loves Silicon Valley. So if Polygon's got the right pedigree, man, they could just go a long, long way. They may not be the best, but they're certainly the first.
Yeah, absolutely. And another one that maybe we can tie back and talk a little bit more about the gaming side of things, but the Bored Apes' new boss making Bloomberg headlines this week, quote, seeking to revive NFTs through gaming. So we talked about Daniel Allegri joining Yuga Labs as the new CEO, and these guys are building a Web3 gaming environment called The Other Side, a decentralized gaming platform. They've sort of beta tested the almost the pipes, the framework with their sewer pass. Over the last 6 months, that game is now closed, but you had to log in with the wallet. All of your scores were kept on chain. You can see the components of how they were testing, and now he's talking about, quote, reviving NFTs. I don't know. I feel like the NFT itself continues to fade into the background. We're going to be talking about the other side. We're going to be talking about gaming. We're going to be talking about, my new Franklin Templeton savings account, where I can buy and swap in cryptocurrency. That's where I see all of this going, of like that commerce layer, the gaming layer. It'd be really fascinating to see how Allegri leads Yuga Labs. I mean, nobody's close to them from a true decentralized Web3 gaming environment.
And nobody has the IP that is so recognizable. I mean,
Right.
Yuga Labs sort of owns everything from CryptoPunks, which is kind of that first very analog bit, 16-bit, 8-bit looking kind of thing, et cetera, to all the way up to these Bored Apes and the Yacht Club on the other side, like you say. But I think underscoring this for me is let's look at the tea leaves as they hit the wind. I know that there's been, regulation blocking the acquisition of Activision Blizzard by Microsoft.
There you
And
go.
we got that early tell from 3 or 4 months ago when the news first dropped that this guy, is it Allegre or Allegri? I don't even
I
know,
don't know.
Daniel, that he was leaving, right? And if you look at his LinkedIn page, it still says he works for Activision and Blizzard. So this news hitting maybe is, like you said, teeing him up for like a May announcement where his LinkedIn page will magically change on May 1st, and he's out of his whatever silent period. But as soon as that dude, who's the COO and apparently like a critical component of the Call of Duty team, when he leaves in advance of an acquisition, which could stand to make him tens of 20 or 30 millions of dollars in bonuses just for being acquired and like getting the handcuffs on for a year or whatever their labor contract will be. He's like, nope, I forego all of it, and I'm gonna go with Yuga Labs, and I'm gonna make Dookie Dash the next thing, and blah blah blah, and like I'm all in on these NFTs. That kind of tells you, I don't think this deal is gonna go through, and I don't think people are gonna get rich the way they thought they were. So he was long gone. That to me just shows this new Web3 thing is real. Gaming
Yeah.
is driving, it will be driving that adoption. And like you said, you're not going to even know. When your Starbucks loyalty program suddenly allows you to buy American Airlines tickets, you're going to just say, that's cool. But you're not going to even know it's on the blockchain.
Yeah.
When Yuga Labs changes what an NFT is called, because they call it a badge. When Epic Games just says, hey, in Fortnite, when you've been buying and using these V-Bucks, oh, by the way, they're now on the V-Buck blockchain. And you're going to say, oh, I get it. It's it's just going to become a known thing without having to explain it to anybody because of gaming. It's
And
going to be a big, 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 big shift.
could not be a smoother tie-in. You just mentioned Epic Games. This week, Apple declares resounding victory after decision reached in Epic Games appeal. This week, an appeals court sided with Apple over its App Store rules in the suit with Epic Games, allowing Apple to control the App Store and the fees and how it charges for things inside. I mean, we are just connecting this literally back around to you're not going to know it. You're not going to know you're using the blockchain, but all of these brands are waiting for the regulatory framework, waiting for the technology, positioning themselves to what they're going to bring to market. And Apple winning this case and declaring a resounding victory means they will be able to control the on and off ramps into buying and selling digital assets through their app store and collect the royalties off of it. Done. I mean, incredible. That was ruling was this week. That was Monday.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to play in the metaverse that you don't even know you're already playing in because you've been an Apple iOS customer for the last 20 years and because you've literally had the Bitcoin white paper on your phone for the last 5 years. And when a game company who wants to flex and say, hey, we're bigger than the metaverse. We're more important than the metaverse. The metaverse just says, no. In fact, we're just going to delist you. You don't even exist anymore in the metaverse. It's like totally the equivalent of like going to war and just bombing some country. They just said, you go away, you're gone. And then you got to go to court and then fight all these things. And yeah, there were like 10 or 12 charges. And I want to say Apple beat them on all but one, which probably means that like they can't price fix. But what it says is you cannot have an end user leave Apple's walled metaverse, Apple's reality. You can't leave Apple's reality and go buy
Nicely done.
V-Bucks on the cheap over from some Google Pixel store or whatever, and then come back and use them over here. No, you have to be a citizen of Tim Cook's. Tim Cook's just like, his Cupertino ethos, man. You're either in the walled garden or you're out of the walled garden. It's your
Oh
choice.
man, that
But
is
don't try to change the rules.
we are all living in Apple's reality. I mean, right? By market cap, by regulatory might, by technology know-how, by market positioning, product positioning, uh, we are in and living in that reality. And we talked about too. I think I took a screenshot of. I got like a ton of Apple Pay marketing just over the last 10
Yeah.
days. I've been hit with more ads for Apple Pay. It's about the wallet. It's about wallet share, and
Yeah, I mean, it's share of wallet, right? That's why people, when you think about companies and the way that they reduce down, like one thing I always love working with Coca-Cola, when we talk to their marketing team, and it's very eye-opening, but their marketing team has one metric that they care about, and it's called share of stomach, which is literally the volume in cubic, pick your, metric for volume, the cubic inches would say, of human stomach volume. I'm not kidding. They talk like this because if I know, let's just say that there's 100 cubic inches or whatever of volume in your stomach, then I, Coca-Cola, am competing with every other company that makes stuff that you put into your stomach for the share of your stomach space. So when I think about that's what drives every decision Coca-Cola makes in terms of how they market and how they sell and distribute and package and product and blah, blah, blah. So if you're Apple, what is their underlying kernel? And you start to think, well, it kind of is getting to, share of wallet sort of, it's like share of life minutes, but by way of wallet, because everyone knows, well, you can't have all the minutes. So we're going to build in screen time apps to make sure that your kids don't go insane being online for 5 hours at a time. So we don't want you to use our products too much. So we can't have share of minutes or life. That would be weird. But share of wallet, then we could do that. How can we make sure that we, Apple, always can guarantee about X% of your wallet, your wages, your money at all times? And them introducing these banking cards is their firm flag in the ground. Apple is no longer a technology company. Apple is a reality company. And what do people do in reality? They play games and they spend money.
yeah, you're gonna be able to look at something and buy it. You're gonna be able to look at something and buy it. That's where this is going. We're about 6 weeks, 7 weeks out from the WWDC. We're going to be counting down. We'll have to do some special rumor episodes as we come up to it. And what I'll be looking for is not about the hardware. I'm not going to be looking at the specs. I'll be looking at the 3D capabilities, how developers are going to be able to plug in and build worlds. The other thing I will be looking for is the wallet integration at the glass, at the eyeball. What is the app? How am I accessing it? Am I using my hand? to make a gesture, to make a purchase, like the way we talk about swiping. What is there'll be some hint. We will not get a clear answer. That's my prediction. There'll be some hint of how the wallet will be used. They will not give you the full red carpet plan, but you'll get some real hot take on, if you're paying attention, you'll see something that maybe we weren't seeing. Swipe gestures to buy, something like that.
I think it's about time we started spending some time on Mac rumors. I'll call up some old friends who still work there and see if I can't shake them down for any kind of tips or beacons as we head into that event. That's going to be first week of June. It's going to come up fast.
Absolutely. Well, we can leave it there, sir. Any parting words before we head out?
My parting words is I just hope that when Apple integrates that face, integration to my new Apple Reality, that I can just blink once to see my discount, blink twice to purchase, and then I can blink 3 times to say that I'm being held against my will and call the police. Something like that.
Provide an emergency opt-out feature via FaceTime. Yeah. I love it. All right, sir. We'll do it again next week.
That's all the time we have for Off the Record, On the Rocks. Join us next week for news and all things crypto. Bring up the house lights. It's last call.